Today we're going to take a quick look at Google Forms' new AI. So in case you haven't noticed or haven't heard, there's now AI or Gemini available within Google Forms that helps you build up your forms a lot quicker than if you have to do things manually. So I'll be running you through what it does, how it works, what it's not used for, so what are the limitations for the moment. And in case you're wondering why you're not seeing that icon when you open up Google Forms, I'll be showing you how to get access to this AI version of Google Forms as well at the end of the video. So the way this works is that you get this prompt at the top of your Google Forms when you open up a new form. In the background, of course, it's running on Gemini, so Google's large language model. It works pretty much the way you would assume it will work. So if you've used AI in the past 2 years, you know you leave in a prompt and something will happen. So in this case, we can, for example, say, give me a survey about movie preferences, right? So something simple, you press create, and then Gemini is going to come up with a number of questions and a number of different question types which best match your prompt. So in this case, movie preference survey, a drop down for which kind of or like the genre of movie that we prefer, a couple of radio buttons here, and then a couple of input fields. If you're okay with that, you can either press retry and it will generate something else for you within the same prompt, or you can press use this form and you get something that you can then manually sort of start changing in case, or tweak in case that you're not completely okay with something that Gemini came up with. So it could be a question, could also be the type of the question. So essentially here you're in the regular Google Forms user interface. So that's how that works. The cool thing, of course, is the way you've seen it, it's really fast, right? So I created this survey in just the press of a button. While if I would do it manually, it would take me at least a couple of minutes or more if you have to come up with the questions. And I think that's the real advantage of using AI in form builders in general, is the fact that it comes up with questions and it comes up with the right sort of form question types for you as well. So if you give a bit more complex prompts, you'll see what I mean. So let's say I'm conducting user research for a form building software as a service startup. I want to ask our users about which features they prefer, for example. This is a UX survey. And what it will come up with normally is not only something which is relevant and well asked questions, but as you can see, it also kind of invents features which it thinks are highly likely to be available in our form building software as a service tool. So these might not be relevant immediately, but at least you get a good ID and a good list to get off of. So these are in general okay questions, especially if you're not a UX researcher and this is sort of a first draft. You have something which is pretty well made question-wise or survey-wise. So that's one thing. So you have the speed is big. Major advantage of using Gemini and Google Forms, and of course the fact that you don't have to come up with these questions and think about how you're going to ask something as well. You get a pretty good first draft. Some of the limitations though are, well, there's actually 3 limitations. So the first one is you cannot use this to tweak an existing form. So it just generates you a form, and when I press use the form, you see it will insert all of those elements and replace my existing form content. So I can't iteratively start using AI to change my form. It's a one-shot thing. So either I accept everything that it provided and then manually tweak it if I need to, or I have to completely retry. So that's one disadvantage. The other disadvantage is that it's not completely integrated with Google Forms as a whole. So what I mean is you can't, for example, have a form with different sections. So in Google Form, you have this section thing here, which is pretty good because it destructures the way you ask for information. It's pretty clear from a respondent's point of view, but it's also a way in Google to have conditional logic. So if I have a question, I can then put here like go to the next section or the end section, for example, based on a specific answer. That's something that you can't do using their AI. So if I ask it something section related, it's not going to do it. Give me a form to ask for food preferences. Use 2 sections, one for personal information, for example, and one for food related questions. That's how you typically would do it. 2 sections, 1 personal information. What about your actual topic? And the thing it's going to generate is going to be a single section, and that's it. So that means no sections, so you can't really structure your survey using AI, and no logic in there as well. So that's the downside. It would be nice if you'll be able to do it. That's not for the moment. I'm assuming that's going to come with later versions. So a final limitation is when it comes to sort of information, if you wish. So let's say that I'm doing an event, physical event. I'm going to gather personal information. It needs to be GDPR compliant. I can ask it to take that in mind. So I'm throwing an event. I need an event registration form. Make it GDPR compliant. There we go. So it's going to actually generate a tick box saying that normally it should. Let's see. So I've read and agreed to the event's term and conditions. So it's not always consistent either, right? So when I tried this before, it did mention that the person opted in to having their data being recorded, personal information. And that's exactly what I mean. So from an information perspective, you can't just blindly rely on AI to handle these things for you. So you need an opt-in indeed, but you also need to specify, for example, for the GDPR, why you're collecting that information. So typically you would have some additional text here. That could have been generated out of the box, but for the moment, it's pretty basic in what it does from an informational point of view. So that's something to take in mind once you start using AI and Google Forms. It's a good first draft, but you still need to make changes. Now, on to the final question, which might be the most burning one if you're looking to get started with this, is how do you actually get this logo at the top of your Google Forms? At the time of making this video, it's not released broadly to the public yet. So what you need to do is you need to apply for Google Workspace Lab. I'll leave a link to the Google Workspace Lab at the bottom of this video. But essentially, once you apply for it and you get accepted, which in my case was almost immediate, I just hit apply and I got in, and you're in the right country. So there's a list of countries where Google Workspace Labs is available, the US, for example, then you can have access to AI within Google Forms. If you're not in one of those countries, it's still always possible, of course, to use as a VPN. I'll leave a link to my favorite free VPN at the bottom, which is good enough to actually get into Google Workspace Lab and start using the AI. But of course, you can use any VPN you want. So that's it. That's how you get access and use AI instead of Google Forms.